Are there any public comments? Are there any public comments? Last and final time, are there any public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. Approval of meeting minutes, August 15th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Matt and Bob, by the way, sorry.
No.
Thanks.
Nay? All right, motion approved. Approve the agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second. Moved and seconded by Bob and James. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approve consent items.
Okay, so the expenses are, the one that, the top one, the $30,000, that was approved at the last meeting, but I had the check cut at a later date in September. And that was for providing funding for people who are participating in farm to business management program. And the remaining expenses total $4,271. Payment to the county of Winona, and then to the auditor, and then for a hosting plan for the Whitewater website.
I'm just looking at the math. That 3,000, 2,000, that doesn't add to 4,200.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're right.
42,000.
You know what I did? Yes, you're right. I did not check the math when I... That is my error. Okay. Thanks for checking that.
So if we just do that quick. Come up with 35,905.15.
Yep.
What was that number? 30?
35,905.15.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much.
We have a motion to approve with the amended total.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Matt, second by Lynn or Bob, I'm not sure.
Bob's right.
Bob, yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Board reports. Certainly.
Really not much. Josh? That was me.
Steve?
Oh, well, one thing, we started that soil initiative about 2 weeks ago. We used some of the ARP funds for cover crops for Homestead County. And basically they started out slow, and we had, I know, 52 producers signed up for it to get cover crops on this fall, and next year we're hopefully going to expand it some more. So far it's starting out good, and James probably knows more about it. Soil and water, maybe not, I don't know.
I can't remember if it was Mark Tyne or Skip at our WAG's meeting a couple of weeks ago. 52 producers accounted for 49,000 acres enrolled,
Wow.
and 200, I can't remember the total acres, but it was close to 20%, 25% of the total acres.
I don't think it was that many, Bob. Your maximum sign-up could only be 150 acres, and I think it was average of 100, so.
Right, but
5,000, yeah.
those that applied
Had other.
had other acreages. It was limited to 100,
Yeah, yeah.
100 acres,
I
150 acres.
think when full implemented, I think that's what we're talking about.
I mean, it
There's
was,
a lot of acres.
it
we
was
got.
a substantial
Yeah,
acres
yeah.
that those producers that applied
Yeah.
ran.
So,
So is that a 3-year program? Is that-
yeah, tentatively, there's funding for 3 years until it runs out. But you can match it with other programs too, so.
I just like the adaptation of, it just seems to keep being more interested in it, you know.
Well, I picked up Winter a couple weeks ago when Mike Zabel was telling me I said, gee, not much to learn. Oh, he says, we got semi-loads coming in yet. Really? Is it really adapted? Yep. He said those spring rains kind of opened a lot of eyes that something's got to change.
Yeah. Well, the thing with our program, we're also gonna have alfalfa, so if a person plants, which once you get it, you'll have it there for a while, plus
Yeah.
small grains is gonna be incentive there too, so. Oh, it's starting off good, so.
I commend you guys for doing that. I
Yeah.
wish all counties could.
How are they working that with alfalfa if you haven't planted before, some type of a deal, or how did they?
It has to be new seeding,
New
if
seeding.
you seed down new alfalfa,
Yep.
there's, well, we put together like a menu. If you do this dollar amount, then you can add on and
Yeah.
things like that, which is a good way to do it. I was suggesting that. So anyway, so 52 producers, we got signed up.
Yep.
And that will be it till spring, until we see where we need to go, where we're gonna go from there.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right.
Excellent.
Well, and including alfalfa, that hopefully will help to open the eyes of some of these naysayers against large dairies, because the dairy is what's using the alfalfa. And, it's proof positive that soil management organizations believe alfalfa is healthy for the soil. And Winona County, we're just ongoing building our jail, hiring an administrator. But we haven't had anything, Sheila will correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen anything come through the agenda that would pertain to this group here recently. So that's about it for me.
Nothing too drastic from Olmsted. Few contracts, but that's about it.
Wabash County, just some zoning hot topics here and there. Just chugging along.
Got some regular ongoing things, but I just thought I would mention, we're sending our district manager and a couple employees to this Bowser Academy thing that is next week, and so I'm hoping that it's useful to learn how to market conservation and so forth. And then the other thing is the roller crimper thing. It's at Dennis Shea's, $20 load fee, because I guess we had troubles of not having a transport or whatever, but people can bring their own trailers and he'll load when they want to use it. And that's kind of a way to maybe encourage cover crops more if it can really cut the herbicide use. So I'm gonna even try to experiment a bit next year and see how that goes, but I know it's like 15 minutes for me. It's pretty centrally located, but still, everything takes time, you know how it is in the spring.
I'm thinking too, cover crop, rye, triticale, and then plant.
Maybe ours will be ready at the same time if we can
Right, if
coordinate
it's,
in
if
the
it's in
area.
the area,
So,
might try it.
all right.
So is that a load and unload fee? When they bring
I
it
think
back?
it's load and unload, but nobody
$20
can hear.
each. Yeah,
For sure, for sure. but-
that's understandable. It
it's-
takes time.
Yeah, you gotta give them something for assistance.
Yeah, no, that would be a problem.
And
A lot of
it's-
people have trailers.
And it's glad he's willing to store it and assist.
Winona County SWCD, I actually didn't make the last meeting. I was at the interview process for the new Winona County administrator, which I believe you did find something.
Yes, we did. We're still in negotiations.
Then, so I didn't make the meeting, but just a few highlights. We are back to being fully staffed now with a hired, our last administrative assistant. And I happen to know the gal. She actually worked with another business that we work with. So good. I think she's going to be a good fit. And for us, it was always constantly reviewing the budget and trying to revamp obviously our largest expenditure is employees, so actually looking at this whole scenario and kind of a lot of conversations with Wanda and being able to bring in good quality people at actually a significant less than what we were spending before. And just by revamping titles and taking things and putting them into a different position and then going after the quality people. So I'm actually fairly impressed how it all turned out and how we were able to skate around not having really the funding we needed at the old model and taking the current model. And so it's just it's a tribute to government and how we can actually save money by just simply retitling and rebranding and finding new people. So I'm pretty happy about that. And I don't foresee us needing a need to hire anybody else, so I think we're going to be good for a while. So that was good. I don't really know any other details. I think the Bowser Academy was brought up because I wasn't there. I think Wanda's going, and
I think she is.
I think Wanda is, and I don't know if Amanda's going or not. I think Wanda is.
Yeah, I know Wanda had signed up the potential new employee. There was a deadline that she had to
To
you
do
know,
that, yeah.
no, not knowing who it was, but she reserved a spot for this person. So.
And in her position, that would be good for her to do that.
Right.
So just to kind of get acclimated to it, because she's never been involved in this. Yeah, I guess just one of the comments I guess I have outside of that a little bit is just the variation in yields in agriculture this year throughout, especially the Midwest. I think we're very fortunate where we're at. There's some other places that don't look as good. Even had supper with a world record holder here about a month and a half ago, David Hula, and I asked him flat out, I said, are you going to hit 600 again? No, he said 400 tops on his record fields. Just they never had a night below 76 degrees for a month straight. And it was 105 during the day, even under irrigation. So a lot of that we saw out in Nebraska. So I just feel we're very fortunate in this little pocket because you don't have to go far to not see it. The other thing we saw a lot of in this area was tar spot. We had areas last year, even into western Wisconsin here, that didn't see any, and this year they were in areas that were really decimated. So it's brought up the subject again, and I think it's something moving forward that really understanding the true research behind it and fungicides limitations. It's going to be really interesting to see how we combat that. Just for the economics, and a couple of the big things are managing residue. That is a huge, huge thing right now, and we're even seeing that within our own company on sales. Just some of the publications that have come out, and rotations, these alternative crops, small grains, things like that are going to be combating that disease. So it kind of all leads back to soil health, plant health, and our ability to combat the diseases that we're seeing. So that's all I have. Anything else on board reports? All right, moving on, number 7, board discussion, action items, financial update. Sheila.
Okay, for checking and money market for August, end of August, we were sitting at $95,500, and in end of September, that was at $99,370.
Page are you
What page?
I can't see the-
7 and 10.
Oh, I skipped right past it. There we go.
Yeah. And that is not including payment that was made from the 319 grant. And that was, I think, 35,000, so that will be coming in. And then also, we have, I put at everybody's place the 2021 audit, which we approved at the last meeting. So now this is your hard copy. So that's pages 7 through 12. Yep.
I wasn't here for the last one, so I'm assuming the audit went well. Okay. Any other discussion? Now we'll move on to B, Whitewater Drinking Water Protection Grant update, septic system contract.
Right, so the Whitewater Drinking Water Protection Grant, 2 things that I have funded in there is cover crops, and then I was able to have in there septic system upgrades, and this is for people who have failing septic systems and are qualified as low income. And that's based on the rural, there's a USDA rural low income standard, and it's different for every county. For Winona County, it's household incomes less than 65,000. So I have an applicant for that, Tyler Burke. He's in the Whitewater Township, and he had Heartland Excavating out there giving an assessment, and they estimated $27,500 to upgrade his septic system so that it meets standards. And so the grant can pay 75% of that. And I can pass around his paperwork, but I would need that approved by the board so that he can start. And if he can't get it done yet this fall, he can do it in the springtime when it's feasible. But at least we'll have the paperwork waiting for him.
Question.
Sure.
Don't know if anybody here knows the answer or not, but it would seem like, are there different regulations for different types of soil or understory, like, or the closeness to water or anything, or is everything just identical, cookie cutter, everybody, no matter where you are, the same specs?
Yeah, definitely by the soil type.
Definitely by
Yeah.
soil type,
Or,
and that's,
yeah, core samples,
right. And
and
that's,
it'd be a different system depending on.
mhm.
No, that makes sense,
Exactly.
I thought,
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah, and then then in Winona County, we have a shoreline ordinance. So then there's, if,
Additional.
yes. And so all of, even though it's an independent contractor, that contractor is certified by the state. And Lou Overhog at Winona County would sign off on it when they're doing the construction. He'll be out on site to making sure that the separation is proper and that everything is up what it should be. And then he'll sign off on it when it's done before we can pay out. And that's how Winona County does their program for low-income upgrades. For, right now we have, Winona County has ARPA funds that are able to do this as well, but I was able to, through this grant, I'm able to go 75% of the cost, but Winona County has a cap on the amount of that 75%. So it's actually a little bit better for him to do it through us. When that came, he actually applied for ARPA funding initially, and when I saw that he was in the Whitewater, I called him up and I said, "Do you want to do it this way?" And he says, "Sure." So that's how I'll do it. And with as far as, I know Steve might be interested, we've had 3 applicants right now for the
Just gonna
ARPA
ask that.
funds. Yeah.
How many of these are we seeing?
Yeah, well, we've had 3 applicants so far. This one is going to be taken care of this way. One of the other ones is, they were low income, and so Lou was working with them to do it through, Winona County has a low income septic system upgrade, and that's limited to somebody who is low income and has a failing system. The
How do they
third
verify
one,
the income?
pardon?
How do they verify that they're low income?
They have to show us W-2s, or not W-2s, but their 1040s, their IRS tax forms. And so I prefer not to keep that, but Tyler came in and met with me and showed me his last 2 years, and then I just verified that the adjustable gross income was below that amount. Because I don't feel comfortable keeping somebody's 1040s.
We've had discussions in the past about expanding it to people who are not low income because of.
Right, the
insurance.
ARPA funds are that way, you don't have to be low income.
So right now, if someone comes in and they're not low income, they've got a failing system, we've got a program for them.
We have the ARPA money that, for Winona County. So that is not limited to low income.
Okay.
But the 3 applicants that we got applied for the ARPA funding. But I'd rather save that for the people who are not in the low-income category, so we can spread our money a little bit more. You know, if we already had another pot that was able to be used, let's use that one. So that's
I have
kind of
another
a-
oddball question.
Sure.
I've always thought I understood that if you put in a new septic system for the house, it's not tax deductible, but I know if people are landlords and you put in a new septic system for your rental property, I think it is tax deductible. So if it's something that we have to have, or by law, why shouldn't it or wouldn't it be tax deductible for a private person with a household to renew their septic system?
Hmm.
Do you know anything, Steve, or?
No, I'm not.
If you don't, that's fine. I'm just curious about it because I think that's what I understood when I tried to research it, that if you own property that's rents, it's just a business expense. But a private person can't deduct it. So that's what I
Hmm.
think is the story, but I'm not sure.
So being on both sides of that equation, this is just a guess. This is by no means educational. But if you look at the tax base on a commercial property or a non-homesteaded property, it's also significantly higher. So we're paying, anybody that has a rental property or a commercial property is going to pay a significantly higher tax base for that same piece of property than a homeowner, and they have their homeowner exclusions for that to offset the non-deductible expenses that they have on that property. So when you're doing it for an income-based scenario, your tax base goes up. And I believe that is part of the offset to being able to reduce out an expense versus an actual homesteaded expense. That would be my take on the whole scenario.
That would make sense. But now with almost 30 grand, that's a pretty big chunk for a lot of people, I think, you know, if you just have your house.
Right,
So,
yeah.
But if you look at a tax base on a commercial property or a tax base on even a non-homesteaded property, it's a pretty big jump.
yeah, but that would encourage people, is all I'm saying. If the government really wants people to
Right,
not pollute, well then,
yeah.
maybe you should.
Yeah, and I'm not here for it, I just,
Right, right.
there is a,
No, that's a good point though.
it's a very, so to allude to that, it's very difficult because even when you're trying to provide, it costs money to provide housing. And so when you do it, and then you have people complaining about how expensive housing is, but your tax rate goes up, everything goes up with it, and you can't mortgage it as long. You've got all these things stacked against you to try to provide that. And so it's necessary evils to keep our government going against, but it's difficult to provide good housing when you're already limited from the get-go. So you kind of need those deductions to try to wipe off the other side. So it's one of the few things that you can actually have an expected 27-year life expectancy or 39 if it's non-residential in that, you know, everything residential is 27-year depreciation. Everything commercial is 39-year depreciation. Well, there's a lot of things that don't last 27 and 39 years. Your septic system may be one of the few that actually will. A well might last that long, you know, a lot of other things don't. So it's a tricky game. But I don't disagree with it. I'm thinking that's the justification.
No, that's great input.
I was wondering, do they need to get multiple quotes for these, or?
No. I think he did check with two though, and this is the one he went with. The only thing that's required is, at Winona County, we have on our website the list of contractors that are able to do it, and they're all verified to be certified with the state. So that's the only requirement. You just can't have
Somebody
some
come
guy
in
down,
Saturday
living down the
after-
street coming and doing it for you, and he's not, yeah.
I couldn't tell looking at the file whether it was a drain field or a mound, you know, in that spot, in that box. It says something, but I couldn't,
Yeah,
none of them were
he,
checked.
well, basically, he has surfacing effluent. So it's, whatever he has there, it is not, it's failing to be filtered and so it
But
needs
the
to
new
be.
system, though, you know, is it, what type is it? Is it a drain field or a mound, or what is it?
I think it's just a regular drain field. I don't know, honestly,
The
but
27,000, I thought I
yeah,
had. to
it
come
must
out.
be a drain,
That's what
yeah.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
They're all going up. It's crazy right now. Last year, they were 20,000 like 5 years ago. So that,
Yeah,
I wouldn't doubt if it was just a drain field, but I don't know either.
yeah. I
So-
didn't see the contractor's, I just saw his estimate, and what I have here, but from what I understand, it's kind of soggy in the yard and not, it's surfacing and it's,
Well, then it probably is mounted.
It could be.
Yeah.
Maybe my guess.
yeah.
So, anyway, I just got a quick question. Are we requiring multiple bids? Is there's no requirement for multiple bids?
That came up in Wabasha too, a month or so ago, whether we require multiple bids.
Mhm.
I just think it keeps the system in check, taxpayer money.
Good
Just,
point,
You
yeah,
know, is that,
yeah. But he
so-
did contact 2 people, but,
yeah, is there, and it's not necessarily that you have to take the lower bid, but it puts things in contrast to see if one is way off.
Good
'Cause
point.
Again, alluding to what Steve says, how do we know $27,000 is fair?
mhm.
Right.
We
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
So is it in the grant?
Nope.
But could we put it in our bylaws or in our side of it to say you need to have multiple?
Yes, I don't see any problem with that.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
saying we have to send Tyler out to go do it now, but maybe, is there any
Yeah.
other discussion on that?
I think that's a good idea.
Should I say connected
'Cause it
with
was-
2? Yeah,
It came up with SWCD in Wabasha County just a
Okay.
couple months ago when,
no, that's good points.
these projects are all getting spendier with fuel and COVID and they blame everything.
Without multiple bids, it leaves the door open for a couple people to just be dishonest and
Mhm.
put in a bid that's $10,000 more than it costs, take government money and.
Yep.
I guess I would just make a recommendation that we need several signed
Did you
bids
call them in?
from the
We
contractors.
set a dollar amount, I think, for
Was it
Third
anything
world
over
projects.
$5,000 or something?
something like that.
But I think that was instituted, right? It would
We did.
take multiple bids or
Right,
at least 2.
yeah,
Yeah.
at least 2 unless, did we have an outlier there? If only one was available or if they tried, but I can't remember.
I can't remember the details, but I think it was anything over 5,000 that needed multiple bids.
Okay.
On a fair basis, I would say
Yeah.
at least 2.
2,
We could
okay.
even put in there 2 to 3 or whatever, but I
Okay.
just think it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But when I showed the estimate to Lou or how, he didn't raise his eyebrows and say, whoa, what is that, it was, seemed in line with other things that he's seen in the past.
Obviously, this was a Winona County to Whitewater scenario with the same branch is extended in Wabasha. If you had somebody in this
Mhm.
area, we could do,
Mhm.
or
Definitely.
Homestead, we could definitely
Definitely.
be doing the same things.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Yeah, I think Olmsted has, if it's above a certain amount, you have to get multiple bids.
Okay.
But I mean, just as far as the understanding what Sheila did for Winona County, she took it out of Winona County's ARPA, brought it over to the Whitewater side because there was a little bit better funding and then it allowed to leverage the county side a little bit better and use some of our funding
Mhm.
or
Right,
through the grant money that we get to do
Right.
that.
okay.
All right.
Did we vote on that?
Yeah.
What's that?
Did we vote on that?
No, we didn't.
No, we need to vote on that, yeah.
Oh, I see.
So we need a motion for approving Tyler Burke's septic system upgrade contract.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Matt, second by Steve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 319 reduction grant update.
Okay, our 319 grant, nitrogen reduction grant is officially done. I am working on the final report. I just submitted a draft report before the end of last month, and now I'm cleaning it up and I had to do the draft one just to get our final payment, and so we got that. And now I have until the 31st to submit the final, make sure there's lots of pretty photos and things like that. So that's going well. And then I have at everybody's place, I just did this in August. I connected with all the farmers that participated in the cover crop program that was funded through that grant. So we did cover crops primarily 18, 19, and 20. Although there were a couple that lagged, that did them in 2021. But, and I just wanted to get some honest feedback from everybody. So I was able to connect with 13 altogether, and there were 18 that actually got paid on some of on the cover crops. Not all of them completed 3 years. Most of them did that. I think it was 14, and then some did 2 years of their 3-year contract.
What was the total number of participants?
These calls were 13 people.
13, okay.
Yes, and so I just wanted to ask open-ended questions, just to get, if they had 15 minutes. And basically I wanted to know, was this, working with us with the cover crops, was that your first experience with cover crops? Yes or no? And then some explained a little bit more, like, yes, I did it with my father's in his operation, or something like that. And then the question I had was we paid $30 for 30 acres. Was that adequate? And what was their response? So basically, the answers you have are verbatim what their answers were to those questions. And one question is there something different we could have done to share the program with other farmers, with the farmers? And they all said, nope, everything was fine, that what SWCD with Olmsted and Winona County things went well. It was very efficient the way it was set up, and easy to sign up and participate. And then asking if they had any challenges when they planted those cover crops. And what do you think prevents others from planting cover crops? And are you continuing with cover crops? And this is the one thing I really wanted to know. 11 of them said yes, they are doing cover crops in some shape or form. And I think one, maybe 2, said they're experimenting with other species now. But 2 did not, or were not currently using cover crops. And the one said he isn't currently because he was using equipment that he borrowed from his neighbor, and his neighbor died. And now that was his source of getting the equipment. So until he gets something arranged where he can get some equipment. And then the one individual said he would not continue cover crops only if he was getting paid. So, which was the, the whole idea of the incentive was just to get people to try it, and then hopefully they would continue. And so I was encouraged that 11 of the 13 are continuing. So that was a big plus that I can put in the report. And I also asked if anything surprised them, and when they were doing this, and then other thoughts. And I just let them talk, and I just took notes. So anyway, it was very interesting. Everybody was very appreciative of the opportunity. They all acknowledged that, hey, there was a learning curve here.
What was the forum? Where did you?
Pardon?
What was the forum? Where did you talk to these farmers?
I just called them up on the phone.
Oh.
Yeah.
This wasn't very good.
Yeah, and I just said, introduced myself, and I said I appreciate it. I first of all thanked them for participating in our program, and I wanted to know if they had a few minutes to talk with me. I just had a couple questions to get some feedback. So
It's interesting, the ones that continue with cover crops after the money ends. I raised that same question at the WAGs meeting, and they thought so, but there really wasn't a lot of follow-up too. And I think it's good to follow up.
yeah. Well, I was
It's
curious.
encouraging
Yeah.
to see,
Yeah.
majority are continuing.
Right. Yeah, and I was curious just to see, just to kind of get feedback to understand, and, if I were to have something, similar in the future, what would fit that niche or make incentivize people. And I just wanted to know, especially with working on this final report for the grant, I wanted to be able to say, and I'm glad that I'm able to say, yes, most of them are continuing with the cover crops.
So I wasn't able to, I tried to read this as fast as I could, but just a couple really quick notes that I put into play with this in a very increased amount of time. One of the things is payments, and I think just reiterating that, it was never designed to be a full funded taxpayer scenario.
Right.
It was designed to help offset the cost to help educate.
That's right.
So just reiterating that. The other thing on that payment side is, I'm looking at the $30. I can tell you right now, a bushel of rye is about $15. Okay,
Yep.
so and then the cost to put it in is probably going to be about $15.
Yep.
One of the issues that we see though, and this is not by any means something negative to any seed house, anything anywhere. I've heavily encouraged people, and we get this question all the time with cover crops, and it's going to allude to a second point that I feel as though the majority of this was rye. Okay.
All but one.
All but one, right? The multi-species are very, very beneficial, but I tell people constantly, this is 20-some years of playing with this, just do something. A bushel. It doesn't, but in a farmer's eye, he's used to seeing, he wants perfect stands of beans, perfect stands of corn, perfect stands of this. The reality of this is something is better than nothing. And this isn't about height or tonnage or measurement or anything. This is just simply about getting a ground cover. And if they could understand the energy comes from the sun, and every one of those little plants, whether they're sporadic or dense, is like having little AAA batteries out there stored with energy. And it's what's in that energy, it's the chemistry in that energy is so beneficial because it's in a collated form. So if we can bring that message out and just simply say this is not about having uniformity and perfection, it's about something. And the long-term benefits, and you see a lot of comments in here about if it was longer, 5 years, And the reality of it is get them to start to see it. So I think if we can really focus on, so it alludes back to this point. If you call a seed house up, they want to sell seed. So they're going to tell you, well, you better put 2 bushel, you better put 2.5 bushel, right? If you get the custom guy doing it. The reality of it is you set the mark where you're comfortable and something is better than nothing. And you don't have to cover every acre, even if you can rotate out on the acres. Because one of the common consensuses that I see here too, Sheila, for feedback to farmers, is it seems to be working better after beans. Well, that's kind of a no-brainer,
Yeah,
right?
comes
If
out
that's
there.
the only time you could make this work, then do it.
Right.
You don't get focused on having to do everything. Keep it, follow the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it affordable, keep it simple, and get it out there when you have the opportunity to get it out there. And if you're not comfortable spending two bushel, do a bushel. It's okay because it's still very beneficial, even if it only gets that done.
Corn silage or vegetable crops too.
Yep.
Another thing I'll just mention about seed price, I did a crazy thing this year. I had 16 acres of rye, combined it. I kept most of it in the bin for hopefully selling to my cousins. But I had some oddball portion that I actually put in a wagon, ran it up an auger over a screen. The straw stuff like went in my loader bucket, and the seed dropped in my fertilizer tender. And I augered it out of my fertilizer tender into the drill, so that's what I planted my 47 acres of cover crop with this fall. Seemed to work fine. I had the flutes wide open, wasn't perfectly cleaned. Flutes wide open and ran it slow, and ended up about 96 pounds on, so that's like 2 bushel. But
Yeah. And it's not, the part of the reason why, and I could allude to this personally, is you tend to want to go a little bit higher because you know you're going to have variation, especially in aerial application. That's the absolute worst. That's the biggest throw your money away there is. So, we tend to say higher because we understand the way the farmer thinks, but at the same time, most of the time I say, look, I shouldn't tell you 2.5 bushel. I'm going to tell you just get a bushel on. How are you going to put it on? I'm going to drill it on. Perfect. Go low. It's going to be a lot more effective. I'm going to spin it on. Okay, you have to go a little higher. Oh, I'm going to fly it on. You're going to have to go a little higher, right? There's that hierarchy. So we can't lump it all into one sum and try to have the same expectations. So if they're cost effective, we have to go one way. If, are cost conscious. So Yeah. It'll go on for hours.
Yeah.
Leave it at that.
But it was, I really enjoyed having these phone calls, because it was, it was nice getting the feedback, and, you know, because of the spring, the way we've had this particular spring, you know, a couple people alluded to, yeah, it really opened my eyes, you know, that I'm glad I had it out there, because it made a difference.
Well, there was two interesting things. One is I did not see as many negative comments about terminating it as I expected, which I thought that would be one of them. And there was one in here that I read quick. And then, what was the other one I wrote here? There's one other thing that I noticed in here. Oh. As you lose some yield with cover crops. It was here, payment rate not adequate as you lose some yield with cover crops. And again, it's just a quick scan of this. And that would be a very interesting conversation to, you know, understand why that happened.
Right.
I'm not saying it did or didn't.
Right.
And there are some, you know, depending on what you're putting out there, there's some, I would say it's probably more education as to why that happened, you know, rather than,
Yeah.
so.
And just trying to figure it out, you know, what
Yeah.
works on your land and in your operation, so.
Okay. Any other discussion on that?
No, but I'm gonna include this in the report.
Yeah, I appreciate you putting this together.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
neat.
very good
It's
information,
useful.
feedback.
Bring that to the SWCDs. So. Okay, local advisory team, grant updates.
Okay, connecting with Don Bernau and Mike Cruz, we're gonna be having those meetings in December, the 12th through the 19th. The December 13th, we're gonna have it at the Elgin Fire Hall. And I'm waiting for the confirmation, but it looks like December 19th for Utica. And the Altura meeting will either be the 14th or the 15th. It depends on what,
December?
yeah, December. It depends on what this board decides for their December meeting. And all of them will be from 10 to noon. So that's all I have right now, just so you know. And I'll probably have, for the December meeting, a payment for room rental.
So this is a bit of a, I'm sorry if you're there, you know.
Yep, no, that's,
This is a little bit of a hot topic for me, I guess, personally, just because I'm reading down the line with these local advisory
and you're gonna be on
teams.
the Utica one, you're invited to that one.
Yeah, obviously, we have land there.
Yes.
So, multiple, I think we have multiple parcels there, don't we? Does
We
that
do.
fit into our 80 acres of cropland, or is that right on the border?
I think it might be on the border, but for sure you're, you know, the one
Might be on
parcel
that
is,
gravel
yeah.
road, because we're on
Yeah.
the east side of the gravel road.
Yeah.
And that, I think everything is to the west side of that
Yeah,
road.
I think so, yeah.
So what is happening to notify all of the landowners? Are there, I mean, this really could potentially set law, and that's what scares me. Because ultimately, this local advisory teams and these duismas are gonna set BPMs, correct?
They are gonna review data and set the best management practices that work for them.
But that best management practice, it's already been stamped in legislation that, the way I understood this in previous conversations, that these BPMs and these duismas can become, and correct me if I'm wrong, can actually become the farming management practices that they have to follow, not just suggested to follow. Is that correct? Because it's already had legislation giving authority to make it without going through legislation, saying, similar to the nitrogen application laws that are put into place and things like that. Is that,
Well, all three of these duismas are in level 2. It's non-enforcement.
then
So
nothing's stopping it from going to the next level?
if there's, well, right now, if knowing, and that, the big thing is knowing what the lag time is to get from the surface to the groundwater. So so everything will be based on this lag time. So when the BMPs, the local advisory teams come up with their BMPs,
Right.
they will get sent up to the MDA commissioner, and then he'd approve it. And so then the BMPs would need to be applied to a certain percentage of the acres in that DWISMA.
And there's where the beginning of this kind of who decides which acres make it happen. You know, if let's just say the number's 50%. Just somebody walk out and say, you, not you, not you, not you. Who decides actually as to who enforces that? Let's just say it's 50%. I'm just hypothetically saying that.
Right, so that would be the farmers themselves in the DWISMA.
But let's say
You know,
nobody wants to do it.
well, they have to come up with, it's the local advisory team that's coming up with the BMPs. You would think that they themselves would be.
But do you
doing
see
that,
the
right.
dilemma here? Because if
Right.
nobody chooses to do it, now all of a sudden there's going to be an enforcement. And this is what I say, it's how you create law. Because then you say, well, nobody's willing to do it, so now we need to enforce it. And what my fear is that oftentimes the local advisory teams, the wrong people show up to set BPMs that may not be economical or applicable or whatever it is, but they'll still make them. You might not even know what happened. 2 or 3 years goes by, nobody's doing it, the enforcement isn't there, and then they'll take and rubber stamp those BPMs. And this is just my fear. I'm just throwing a hypothetical out here. This is how we create law. And then, boom, now it comes in just like a buffer law, just like anything else, where a governor or somebody says, well, man, you know, at will is not working, so we're going to make it the law. And then this DWISMA gets closer to this DWISMA, that DWISMA, this DWISMA, that DWISMA. Before long, then it turns into, we got enough circles on the page, we might as well just make it for everybody. And that's my fear. My fear is that I want to keep it at will in education and things like that. But I see this beginning of creating circles on a map. And then, so I guess it goes back, alludes to my first question. What are we doing to make sure the right people show up to this local advisory team? The actual landowners, calling all the landowners? Are we just putting an ad in the paper? How are they being informed?
They've
And really
all-
stress the importance of
They've
this.
all been sent letters, and there's been phone calls made, and then working through the ag retailers to connect with them. And so we're trying to do what we can to get
Yeah.
a hold of everybody and invite everybody to be a part of it. And and if I'd be interested, Josh, I'd love to, if there's a couple that have, gosh, we gotta have, and how to reach out to them and encourage them to be a part of this, because I think it's important.
My fear with this, and maybe I'm making it all up, but I see us right here, right now, and this thing could scale out very quickly. I just try to put myself, having dealt with businesses, having dealt with farmers for 25 years, if I got a letter in the mail that said local advisory team, right? How many of those have been sent out over the years? How many groups? We have 32 water boards. We have, we begin to look at that, and I don't really think they understand what this actually is, what's actually on the table. That we're right here in a process that could lead us to limitations. And I'm not saying that there aren't some limitations that will definitely benefit everybody as a whole, but usually the local advisory team, there's already a preconception that you're going to get certain groups in that are going to sit and bang on their drums and, we all should all farm in a certain way. And they automatically just turned off, and I don't want to deal with that. Do they really understand what this is?
Yeah. And as far as the DWISMAs go, those that have acreage are the ones that we're invited. So if somebody in the town of Elgin that has, you know, a house wasn't in on this. So that's, because we're looking for agricultural minded people to be on this.
So I own land in both the Altura and the Utica Duismas right now. But obviously I don't own agricultural land in the Altura one, but I do
Mhm.
in Utica. So I mean, is it
So
only
where-
for people in those Duismas?
Mhm.
That
So you
can
have
attend
land
that.
in Altura as well?
Yeah, but it's all residential. Well, it's commercial and residential.
Oh,
That's
got
not
it,
good.
got it.
But it would
Yeah.
it still allow me to go to that meeting and have input?
You know, I would think in your capacity, I would welcome you to be.
Because I have nothing in
yes.
Elgin, so I wouldn't have any
Right.
say in Elgin.
Right.
Okay.
You know, you just raised a good point. It's all the landowners within the Duisma. What about the city folks? I mean, you look
Right.
at the lawns, lawn cares,
Mhm.
you know, it's not, everybody just points the finger at the
Exactly,
farmer.
exactly.
It's
I
the
agree.
farmer, it's the farmer. It's not always the case.
I agree.
Well, my real fear is that we don't really truly understand the long-term effects of nitrates and everything in water, and how long it could take, and how that all channels, and where it comes from, and where it goes. And so you bring up the lawn thing, right? So they banned all phosphorus, right, on
Right.
lawn care golf courses. Did it do anything? Do we have a better phosphorus scenario today than what we did 20, 15 years ago? Absolutely not. It didn't do anything, right? So the reality of it is somebody needed to look good. So, hey, here's a feel good, we'll ban it for you guys, right? Didn't do anything. And my fear with these Duismas is the same thing is gonna happen. We apply best management practices, nothing happens, so then we say, well, not enough people are doing it, we're gonna mandate it, now everybody has to do it. But we don't know, it could be a 40, 50-year long process, and it might not even be where we're at, it might be coming from somewhere else or doing
Right.
something else. It might have naturally been there, we don't know. And so, again, for me, it's this careful evaluation of the economics of what built our country, which is agriculture and industry, and then making sure that we actually do something, that if we're going to do something, is there going to be an actual positive result, or are we just making law to look good to say, see, we did something, just like the phosphorus in the lawns thing. It didn't do anything. It's worse today than it ever was. Well, you know, we know that there was probably a minute amount of that happening. So that's where I'm leading, is I'm just trying to make sure that the right people get in these groups. And I'm looking out 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I'm connecting the dots together and saying, is this just the slow effort to mandate? That's what scares me.
Well, and that's one reason why I appreciate you being on the Altura one, because I think that discussion needs to be made. So,
I agree with what you're saying, Josh.
I don't know, this is just a huge red flag for me. It's just my opinion. Any other discussions? So, wait a minute. The Altura one, December 14th and 15th.
or 15th, depending on, because right now our board meeting is scheduled on the 15th. However, Wabasha and Olmsted SWCDs, they move their December meeting to the third Thursday. So if we have it on the 15th, James and Lynn will have other commitments.
Well, I also saw that that's the MA SWCDEA will be.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
13th and 14th, is it?
Yep.
Because it's 12th is for
Yeah,
like
right,
that's-
right in that.
Thanks.
managers or something.
I forgot all about that, and I should have not forgotten, because that was a discussion last week for something else. Okay, so, yeah,
Where is the
right.
one in Utica going to be at? We don't know yet.
It'll be at the Utica School Community Building.
Oh, at the old school?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I guess we'll talk about our next meeting when we get to that point, but thanks, James, for reminding me about
so we don't know the 14th or 15th one yet, correct?
Well, the Altura one, I don't know yet.
I'm gonna put it in as the 14th. If it gets changed to the 15th, will you just notify me? I'm assuming we're just
Okay.
gonna have that at City Hall.
Yeah, yeah, so I will let you know how it goes.
Perfect. Any other discussion on that?
Nope, just want to give an update that we're trying to schedule these meetings.
All right, agency reports.
Morning, Adam Bilkey with Bowser, working on stations in the Rochester office. Just a few quick updates. A couple you mentioned, Bowser Academy is coming up next week, so I think quite a few of the local staff are planning to attend, so I'm happy to see that. It's something we try to encourage each year to get some training, both technical training, some of the administrative and financial as well, and some of the programs that roll out. So there's a lot of good opportunities, a lot of networking that happens there each year. Also appreciate you as work on doing the cover crop survey. Also has been rolling out a couple programs focused on soil health. I think each SWCD recently received a grant it's pretty small, $14,000, but trying to get more feedback on how to set this kind of programs up for success, knowing that there's a lot of interest in soil health and cover crops in particular, and hopefully see more interest in that in future legislative sessions. Appreciate that work. The only other thing I was going to mention, next week the Bowser Board will be taking action on a second round of our Habitat Enhancement Landscape Program training. That has about $750,000 from LCCMR, focused on kind of diversifying the plantings on easements, conservation lands. So in an effort to try to provide more pollinator habitat for other beneficial insects. So the grants are kind of limited in size. I think the most SWC or county can apply for is $60,000, but there was quite a bit of interest in the last sign up last year. I think River SWC applied for that. Been working with that grant. So we'll be opening that up to approve it next Wednesday. That's all I have. So any questions?
When they do those pollinator grants like that, the $750,000, is it just to offset seed cost, is it total planting cost, or what are they trying to?
Yeah, it's usually for the seed and for whatever method they need to do the planting. So it's like I said, the $60,000 is pretty small, but it's intended to hit a couple easements in your SWCD area or other conservation lands.
So is there's no scope to that kind of taxpayer funded, it's just kind of wherever sort of deal, or is it targeted to rural areas, or is it going to be a lot of people in their backyards, sort of? I mean, what's the targeted areas?
Well, it's for, I mean, the best example would be for the current easements. We may not have a real diverse planting out there. This is an opportunity to provide some pollinators out there to help. As we know in the legislature, that's been a hotter topic is pollinators providing more habitat for beneficial insects. So this is a small grant opportunity to do some work to improve some of the habitat on these existing. And it is more focused on the rural purposes.
It's great to have pollinators in the city, but a lot more beneficial out here.
Right.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
So I think the earlier iterations were more focused on the rusty patch bumblebee. I think the second round they added a few other pollinators that are more threatened.
All right, anything else, Adam? Thank you. Anybody have anything else? If not, next meeting's December 15th.
We have to discuss that.
To be
So-
determined.
So the 15th is the third Thursday, but James and Lynn have scheduling conflicts with their own SWCDs.
And they usually attend SWCDs too in Wabasha, so.
That's right.
Oh, they moved the meeting?
Yeah, in November and December, they move their meetings up 1 week to the third Thursday. So that messes up with so we'd be down to 3 people, so we'd have to reschedule.
Move it up a week, Josh.
That's what I was looking at.
Does that work?
No, I know I'm gone the 8th and 9th. I've got a big pre-sec.
Well,
Yeah, I have
Winona
to speak to Iowa.
SWCD has their meeting on the 8th.
Yeah, which I won't make that.
Would you be interested in an afternoon meeting, perhaps?
What time do your SWCD meetings get done on? 15?
Yeah.
All is done by noon.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of
for
them
sure.
get stretched out, though.
I think that late in the year, I could be open to anything,
Yeah.
even if it was afternoon of the same day.
And the 14th is out because of the Altura.
MASWCD convention.
Yeah, and I don't need to be here on the 8th. That's I just. Any other input? I don't have a solution, so.
I can be pretty flexible.
Matt,
Afternoon.
afternoon?
Afternoon.
On what day?
On the 15th of December?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be on vacation for a couple of weeks in the time frame from like the 7th through the 18th. So,
You're out there.
You're not
anyways.
allowed to do that.
Yeah, what is this?
Are you going to the Keys again?
yes.
Are you really?
Gee, maybe I should plan a trip too.
Yeah. We bumped into each other in Illinois, right?
In this,
That's really?
Yeah, we're both at a gas station. I'm like, Sheila.
what do you think?
I played it off and said, I met your twin.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I saw him. I thought, if Steve has a twin, this is him.
So do we want to do a 1 o'clock meeting on the 15th?
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah,
That
that's-
works with everybody but Steve, right?
So we're gonna have to post. That's a
Yeah,
test.
Steve's gonna be gone the month of December.
Yeah.
Not gonna matter what day it is. He's absent.
So 1 o'clock on December 15th. Okay. Do you want me to double check out here to make sure that that works on their calendar?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they put you guys through training and ladies.
Yeah, I'm leaving the day after the training.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, first of all,
I was
that's-
told it was always in December.
It is.
Yeah, so it's,
Yeah, I think it's on the 5th and 6th of December,
okay.
and I'm leaving on the 7th.
Okay.
Not wasting any time.
All right.
That's,
You got 82 days of training? What the hell?
I know that we're pretty smart to be done.
Oh. And there'll be, what, 40 new legislators this year, at least?
Yeah.
At least, plus whoever would. Yeah.
I won't be in the chaos.
Yeah.
It works on at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
So it'll
Actually,
work.
yeah, we get cleaned out. Really is.
We do our normal SWCD meetings the 2nd.
So that's a good idea.
Right, so the 8th
Right
of
now, it's
December.
nothing but a mess up there anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of entrenchment. So, yeah, that is good. It's good.
November would be it. Yeah, we do the 2nd
Yeah, the 8th of December would be the SWCD meeting.
for us. So 15th is an afternoon, 8th of December is an
Uh-huh.
Yep,
So they were good with that?
yep, they were good with that.
I would move to adjourn if you're entertaining a motion.
Also adjourned. Bob, second by Matt, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,